Okay, we're back. Dystopian Dance Party Podcast. I'm Zach, and this is Callie. We're finally doing, this is the reason that we did 12 months of Mike, is this month. You might ask why we committed to an entire year of podcast just to talk about Mike Myers' Cat in the Hat. And I don't have an adequate answer for that question, but this is it. This is what started it all. We've been working our way up to this point for this whole time.
Now we still have to watch 4 more strikes or whatever.
Now at least if we lose our minds and are never able to finish this project because we've been institutionalized, now we will have achieved what we came here to do. So
the rest is the stretch goal. This was just the goal,
right? So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, not a lot in terms of movie. The movie is
it's mercifully short. That's really the only nice thing we'll say about it is that it was short.
I think so. Yeah. There's one thing to say about Cat in the Hat. The movie is, I guess, unlike the real Cat in the Hat, it does not overstay its welcome.
I think it overstays its welcome a little bit in that it exists. Right. But I mean, in terms of length, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a quick little hour and 20. Still too fucking long. Like it is,
because I mean, that's like, and we'll talk about this. You know, that one of the problems with this movie, just on a not even a script level, just like on a pure concept level, is that they are trying to adapt a 48-page children's book, which is basically a poem with pictures, into a 3-act Hollywood movie. So, you know, any amount of time, like probably anything past like 30 minutes is too long. But
I honestly feel like with a competent cast and director, it would have been a lot better. Like the Cat in the Hat didn't even need to be in this movie with about how much the non-Cat in the Hat stuff relates to it, like the extra stuff that they had to add to it, like
right.
It really just it's just like it's like watching Mike Myers go through all of his tics, basically.
Yeah, but for some reason he's in a person.
Yeah.
So not a lot to summarize of this movie, but a lot to say, and a lot of this is the behind the scenes stories on this one are some of my favorite of all time, not just in Mike Myers' universe. But a couple of listener comments. I'm so impressed that you guys are sticking with us. You know, granted, it's the same 4 people, but my God, that's a bigger audience than I would have expected for this. So it's a win. It's a win for me. So Jay Shane on YouTube said, "Oh God, no!" And then 4 exclamation points. You both deserve a break for doing these. Yes, we do. Actually, we have a little bit of a break coming up, but we have to cram a little bit. So those of you who are longtime listeners know that June is Jerry Curl June, the holiest month of the year.
Our holy month.
Yeah, and we don't want to pollute Jerry Curl June with this Mike Myers nonsense. And also, as it happens, the next 2 movies that we're watching are 2 Shrek sequels. So I kind of want to just marathon both of them and get them both out in May. And, you know, we'll see how that works, because it has honestly been all we can do to just watch and record and edit one podcast a month. It's like we're lucky if it comes out on the last day of the month So this may be too ambitious, but our goal is to get 2 out in May and then take a nice whole month off before we go back for the Love Guru. So that's the goal.
But we also have to monitor when the Love Guru goes off of Netflix, because it's on Netflix right now. But
right.
When I finished, as I finished The Cat in the Hat, it's been on Netflix for 2 years now.
Yeah, because I
remember it was 2 years ago that we watched it, and I watched it on Netflix. And April was always going to be our Cat in the Hat month, and as the credits were rolling, it came up and said Cat in the Hat only available through April 30th. So we got this in right under the wire, because I was not going to fucking pay for it.
I love that they tell you that as the movie is ending, because they think you're going to be desperate to watch it again.
Well, I'm sure that it was, if you had it in your list to wait to watch later, they would have told you. But it was not on my goddamn. Well, maybe it was on my list, because I knew I had to watch it eventually, so I wanted to not have to search for it. I don't know, but yeah, if you're listening to this will probably be released on the last day of April anyway. So I guess you missed out on watching The Cat in the Hat on Netflix.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to watch it on DVD, I guess.
Then, so we got another comment from Humongous featuring Automaton now. He said, I agree with everything you guys have said. By the time this movie, he's talking about Goldmember, came out, I was just frustrated with Austin Powers, though I still kind of thought Dr. Evil was funny. You guys should take a break for a month and do Kiss Behind the Mask before you finish up this malarkey. I don't know. I'm going to say hard pass on Kiss. I'm sure we'll do it.
Like, taking a break for Jerry Curl Jr. is a break. Taking a break for Kiss is just more work.
Yeah, it's like taking a break from having something shoved up your ass so that you can get kicked in the nuts instead. But we do that being said, we do need to bring back the book club. So once this horrible social experiment is over, I think we'll go back to our original slightly less horrible social experiment. Next we have Marty White. He said the only good thing I can say about this movie is that Eddie Murphy isn't in it, which yeah, great point. That is actually that's a good like bright side exercise that at least we're not watching Norbit. He says I do have to compliment Mike on his attention to his craft, on his development as a comedian, and his ability to understand that observations themselves aren't jokes. Yeah, I think like at least to this point, like even in Goldmember, which we pretty much hated.
Not pretty much. Full on hated. I fucking hate that.
But there was at least the one scene that we talked about that we both liked, where he was on Mini-Me's shoulders. Like there's always something that is like, oh yeah, this is why I liked Mike Myers. Like he hasn't completely lost it. Now the real test is going to be, because I will say there's even like in Cat in the Hat, I'm not 100% sure that those things are intentional.
Right.
But there's a few parts of this movie that we'll talk about that are like almost like Dada.
Yeah.
Just pure absurdity that I think are funny and that are funnier out of the context. Like they're honestly funnier if you don't watch the whole movie. Like if you just the origin story of this was, I think I just saw a clip of a scene that we'll talk about what scene it is, but I just saw a clip and I was like, holy shit, I need to see this Cat in the Hat movie. But then I saw it, and seeing the whole movie did not improve my enjoyment of it. It's really the clip is the best part. It's like you can
you don't need to, because there's no story, there's no plot.
Yeah, none of it connects with each other anyway. So you might as well just take this completely out of context skit. So yeah, so far, there's always been like some redeeming quality that it's like, oh, okay, we weren't all just having a mass hallucination that Mike Myers was funny. But like I said, the real test is going to be if there's something like that in The Love Guru. I don't remember one, but it's been a while. I haven't watched it. It's been
haven't seen
over
it.
10 years now. So
I have not seen it. So that'll be my first time watching Love Guru.
Yeah. So you'll be seeing it with, well, I was going to say no bias, but I mean, your bias is.
No, I'm already biased. I already hate it. So. Yeah.
It could be a fucking masterpiece, and you're like, we're so fed up with Mike Myers that we would still hate it. Lastly, so this is one that I hope I'm not putting you on blast, Jukebox Cowboy, because this didn't actually, it shows up in my notifications, but not on the comments. So I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if you retracted this. If you retracted it, I apologize, but it doesn't seem very inflammatory to me. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. Jukebox Cowboy said, okay, then just watch The Cat in the Hat all the way through for the first time. And I reckon it ain't as bad as folks made it out to be. I can totally see why kids would love it. It's completely obnoxious. And then I assume there's a but in there, but that's where my notifications cut off.
I don't know. It seems pretty incriminating. Yeah. You two things that were incriminating. You watch it through all the way, and you reckon it's not as bad as folk make it out to be. So those are two extremely incriminating comments.
I think it's not as bad as people make it out to be, if only because it's often talked about as one of the worst films ever made. I think if that's the bar you set for it, then yeah, I guess you could say it's underrated in that sense. So anyway, sorry if you didn't want to share that, but I just did for you. So like I said, there's a lot of backstory for Cat in the Hat. And I just think it's useful to go back, like we hated Goldmember, but Mike Myers, like circa 2003, he's riding high. Like he just did the first Shrek. He just did Goldmember. Before Shrek was Austin Powers. So these are like the three most commercially successful films in his career. It's interesting to look back on it because this is really like the moment of his fall. Like it's like the exact. he went from Goldmember, which a bad movie, but a bunch of people saw it, to just being an absolute pariah of the industry. And the way that happened was a film that didn't get made. That was going to be, I think it was just going to be called Dieter, but it was going to be based on his character from Saturday Night Live, from the Sprockets skits. And when I was doing research for this, I actually found a Vulture article from 2013 that talks about the unproduced Dieter screenplay, which is apparently floating around somewhere. I don't know if it might be online. The guy who wrote this said he recently came across a copy, and he said it turns out it's one of the funniest scripts Myers has ever written, and if it were made, it might have wound up being the next Austin Powers or Wayne's World. The storyline follows Dieter's talk show plummeting in the ratings after his pet monkey Klaus, who's his wildly popular sidekick, is kidnapped and held for ransom. Dieter, who can't make the ransom because he spent all his money on arts and lotions, that's a quote, then travels to LA to get his monkey back. Will Ferrell was going to be in it, playing Dieter's stereotypical American cousin. Also, Jack Black was going to be in it. They said this is coming right off of his breakthrough role in High Fidelity when he was cast in 2000. Jack Black was to play Daryl Haynes, a monkey tracker / notary public who comes to Dieter's aid. And this part here is what makes me think that this would have been, certainly a better movie than Cat in the Hat. It says one big thing the movie had going against it is that Dieter is a much less relatable and less charming protagonist than Austin Powers or Wayne Campbell were. In fact, he's pretty cold and off-putting. Throughout the movie, he's a Nietzsche-quoting artsy nihilist who doesn't really have any affection for anyone except his monkey. Dieter is perhaps at his most sadistic in a scene midway through the script where he sends an FBI team to retrieve his monkey, lying that it's his human son who's been kidnapped. A bunch of the FBI men are killed, but Dieter doesn't really bat an eye.
This movie sounds amazing.
I don't know. It sounds great. And it's kind of funny because I feel like we've mentioned a couple times that one of the things that rubs us the wrong way about these movies is that like Wayne is likable, but he's also a whiny bitch. Austin Powers is, I guess, sure, he's likable, but he's likable in the sense that the script is written so that everyone likes him, so right. I honestly feel like this. Yeah,
same with Wayne, because all of Mike Myers' characters are cold.
Right. So it's kind of like
the Cat in the Hat isn't fucking likable. He's
an asshole. He's terrible.
Right.
So it's almost like Dieter's like more honest. Like I prefer, right. I would prefer him to just, come out and say that he's a misanthrope instead of doing all of these like gymnastics to like make his character seem warmer and more personable. And another thing it said that sounds great is, in addition to Dieter being a heartless nihilist, another thing about the film that might have been tough for mainstream audiences to swallow is all the references to German art house cinema that color the script similarly to how James Bond references are used in Austin Powers, but not as blatantly. There are subtle nods to the movies of Fritz Lang and Werner Herzog that would probably be lost on the average U.S. movie theater patron, as would the planned cameo from filmmaker Wim Wenders. So, like,
good.
This sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, and that was the kind of stuff that we liked in Austin Powers, was the more like very specific sense of humor. Like, yeah, it probably wouldn't have done that well in the theaters, but neither did the fucking Cat in the Hat.
Exactly. So, and at least this might have been like a cult classic, whereas the Cat in the Hat, I
it's
guess
a cult
you could
classic.
maybe call it a cult classic, but that's a stretch.
Yeah, it's not really a classic, but like I know that, you know, it's so renowned as being so bad that I
It's
know it
like
has a fan base somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. You have to see it for yourself. At the same time, this Vulture article also did note some warning signs. They quote from an Entertainment Weekly article that's no longer available. The film's co-producer, Emma Chasen, said that the problem with the script was that Dieter was too passive. He didn't make choices. He resided only in the intellect, not in the heart. It would have been like Austin Powers just saying, smashing, baby, smashing. Funny lines alone don't make a movie work, which that is like, my God, that's going to be on fucking Mike Myers' tombstone, I think.
Right.
Like, so clearly, it might not have solved all of its problems, because that idea of like relying too much on catchphrases is Mike Myers' Achilles heel. But at least Dieter had some like ready-made catchphrases, whereas as we'll discuss with the Cat in the Hat, he doesn't so much have catchphrases as just
yells.
just like Tourette's, basically.
Yeah.
It's more of a condition than So anyway, I think we've alluded to this before. Dieter didn't happen. Mike Myers decided to pull out of the film because of issues with the script, which, by the way, he wrote, which caused less than a week after he told Universal Pictures that he was leaving the film, the studio sued him for their $3.8 million spent on pre-production costs. And then a month later, he was hit by a second lawsuit, this time from Imagine Entertainment, which claimed that, quote, Myers claimed he had not approved the screenplay. Who wrote the screenplay? Myers. The suit continues. This was not the first time Myers engaged in such conduct. He has followed a pattern and practice of breaking his promises, betraying the trust of others, and causing serious damage to those with whom he deals through selfish, egomaniacal, and irresponsible conduct. This lawsuit sought more than $30 million in actual damages, plus punitive damages. Mike Myers then countersued both Universal and Imagine, and both lawsuits were later settled out of court. And so this is what's interesting. So Dieter was going to be produced by Universal with Bo Welch as the director. Bo Welch is not a household name. He got his start as a production designer for several Tim Burton movies. He did Edward Scissorhands. I think he did Beetlejuice. Yeah, Batman Returns.
That makes a lot of sense. Having watched Cat in the Hat.
Right, exactly. Like, it honestly, yeah, the Cat in the Hat has this like Tim Burton-esque aesthetic. And he would have been good for Dieter too. He clearly was familiar with German Expressionism, having worked with Tim Burton. And that would have been his first film. So Mike Myers pulls out of Dieter, and then he's on the hook for all of these millions of dollars in damages. And then miraculously, 2 years later, suddenly Universal is making this film, The Cat in the Hat, directed by Bo Welch and starring Mike Myers. And, I don't think any party has ever admitted as much, but it's like very clear that this was a movie that he made to get out of the lawsuit, to get them to drop the charges against him. To kind of rewind a little bit into the backstory of this movie, because this is also, there's some interesting like alternate universe kind of material here. DreamWorks had originally acquired the film rights to The Cat in the Hat by Dr. Seuss in 1997. Later started production after the 2000 How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring, of course, another Canadian comedy legend, Jim Carrey, became a commercial success. The producer of The Grinch, Brian Grazer, said, because we grew up with these books and because they have such universal themes and the illustrations ignite such fantasy in your mind as a child, the aggregation of all those feelings, it leaves an indelible positive memory. And so when I realized I had a chance to convert first The Grinch and then The Cat in the Hat into movies, I was willing to do anything to bring them to the screen. So like, you think about those words and then imagine them juxtaposed with the image of a chubby child just slamming Mike Myers in the nuts with a piñata bat,
or even like that, and also like The Grinch too. I'm right in the minority that I don't like that movie. I thought it was creepy and stupid.
Yeah, I don't even think
everyone
really
loves it, and they love that stupid
I think
fucking
our
song.
generation is willfully deluded about The Grinch. It is, yeah, it's an uncanny valley nightmare.
Why do they have to make everything live action? Just make things cute cartoons. There's a cartoon Grinch. Like, that should have been enough. Why do we need to put these grown ass men in fursuits. Like it just doesn't make any sense. And then it's got to be like edgy. If they make it live action, now it's got to be edgy.
Right.
So stupid.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be live action. It doesn't have to be edgy. It doesn't have to be 90 minutes. It doesn't have to have Jim Carrey rapping with Busta Rhymes over the credits.
You can just leave shit alone.
Yeah. So anyway, so the Grinch was bad, but it was successful. And then the Cat in the Hat was karmic retribution for the Grinch because it was even worse and not successful. A couple of interesting things about this early production, though. Apparently, when production began, Randy Newman had written some songs. We're talking about the Cat in the Hat now, and they were dropped because they were deemed inferior. The final film has a score by Randy Newman's cousin, David.
Wait, for real?
That's what Wikipedia says. Let me.
His cousin.
So is David?
I like that they don't say David Newman. It's just Dave.
So is David Newman the more talented Newman brother all along? And we just like Randy just got all the fame. I'm sorry, Newman cousin, not brother.
I don't know. Did you really like the score to Cat in the Hat?
Well,
because I don't even remember anything of it except for the Smash Mouth song and the song in the credits.
It's very generic. So maybe Randy was just having a real off day, or maybe he was like, it's the fucking Cat in the Hat, and he just crapped out some songs and got a paycheck, and then the songs didn't end up. In the movie.
I just realized. Yeah, you said they were deemed inferior.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. So at the very least, David is better than Randy, or at least in this.
At least he's better at at composing songs for the Cat in the Hat than Randy.
Yeah, right.
Which honestly, like, no harm, no foul for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be known as a great composer on the Cat in the Hat soundtrack. I'd rather be dropped because the songs were inferior. What if they were just like different versions of You Got a Friend in Me?
Yeah. Just thinly veiled rewrites of his Toy Story music.
Yeah.
Another thing that I love, and I wish I could have seen this, is that Tim Allen was originally considered for the role of the cat, which is like, if you thought Mike Myers was a bad fit, fucking Tim Allen? What?
I can't even imagine that.
Even post Santa Claus it's bizarre. Well, yeah, he's not like animated enough.
Fursuit. The Santa Claus is just a fat suit. I can't imagine. Can you picture Tim Allen in a furry cat costume?
No. And would he be doing? Like, Tim Allen's shtick is just like not at all the Cat in the Hat.
I am in big trouble. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The script was originally based on a story conceived by Allen, who admitted that as a child he was afraid of Seuss's mischievous feline babysitter. Allen stated, "My dream is to give it the edge that scared me."
Well, I'll tell you what, that was an
edgy Cat in the Hat starring Tim Allen. Like, I wish I had a portal to this universe. Because I'll tell you one thing, that movie is not boring. Whatever, it might not be good, but it's not boring.
Well, the one that got made is a horror film, so yeah. I mean, that part stuck.
Another thing I didn't know is that this movie was written by Alec Berg, David Mandel, and Jeff Schaefer, who were writers for Seinfeld.
Oh, I knew that. I can't remember why I knew that. I must have been reading something about it like a year ago, because I got like obsessed with it after I watched it. So I think I like must have watched like, did you know this about Cat in the Hat on YouTube or something? I don't know.
Yeah, the Seinfeld writers wrote the script, but although Bo Welch and a publicist for Mike Myers denied it, several people have said that Myers had considerable input into the film's direction by telling some of the cast, specifically Alec Baldwin and Spencer Breslin, who plays the main boy Conrad, how to perform their scenes. So I like to imagine him doing this well in the cat suit. I forgot to mention that the reason why Tim Allen wasn't in the movie is because he was already committed to the Santa Claus 2, which was also delayed because Tim Allen, in a very Mike Myersian move, wanted a script rewrite. of the Santa Claus 2. So he dropped out of the role. And then I guess the producer, Brian Grazer, was like, well, lemon's out of lemonade. Mike Myers owes me a favor and possibly upwards of $30 million. So let's put him in the role instead. And
I wish that Tim Allen had just done both. And so he would have to like run back and forth and change out of the Santa Claus outfit and put on the Cat in the Hat outfit. And sometimes he'd get his wires crossed so there'd be like whiskers on him when he's in the Santa Claus outfit or something.
Yeah. I think that would have arguably improved both movies. There's an interesting story from the Los Angeles Times in 2003 comparing The Cat in the Hat to The Grinch. It said The Grinch held an obvious movie-making advantage over Cat in the Hat, and that Grinch's lead character changes, and there's an entire world called Whoville in which he evolves from foe to friend. With Cat in the Hat, says the director, Bill Welch, well, there's not a lot there. Mom leaves. Cat comes in and trashes the place and cleans it up before she comes home. That's not much of a movie. And no, it's not. I feel like he thinks that he added more to the movie than he actually did, because it's still barely anything fucking happens. Or it's somehow at the same time too much happens and nothing happens in this movie. like there's just like stuff just constantly occurring. But when I was trying to break down the scenes to do the mic proof, I was like,
it's like scrolling through TikTok.
Yeah, I didn't know when the one scene ended and the next one began.
Right, it's like random little like viral videos or something. There's no plot, there's no character growth. There's like, they think that there's character growth, but it never explicitly happens. Like,
right.
And we'll get into that, but
and it happens in like a really head scratching way. But yeah, right. we'll get into that. I've got a few more things from that same article. I like this. So Audrey Geisel, Dr. Seuss's widow and the overseer of his estate, reviewed drafts of the screenplay. And she was worried about potty humor, which I'm like, what were the earlier drafts of the screenplay? Because 90% of the jokes in this movie are the cat either saying something inappropriate or almost saying something inappropriate and then being stopped. Like, what were the jokes that were too hot for Audrey Geisel? Because it seems like she let a lot of them pass. Brian Grazer said she's as tough as you get. There were a few jokes in the drafts that she felt went too far. Among them was a scene in which the cat looks at what is, and this is in the movie, by the way, the cat looks at what is by implication a centerfold of the children's naked mother, after which both his hat and tail become erect. And Brian Grazer said, I said, Audrey, this movie may not be for our generation. I'm like, our generation didn't want the cat to get a boner? Like, what the fuck?
Well, maybe it did, though, because there's mad furries in our generation.
That is true. Maybe this movie was way more prescient. Tell.
Right? Like, are we just like, because we hated the Grinch, too.
Right.
Like, it's hard for me to gauge what other people like, because I hate so many things.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, I have something to say about the centerfold gag too, because it's like, I'm so confused. Yeah. So the reason he has that picture is because the mom has just like a nice, like,
it's a framed headshot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a professional headshot,
because she's a realtor.
Yeah, it's like a professional framed headshot of her, and the cat takes it. And when he takes it, it flips down, and that's where you're supposed to see the centerfold. Now, a couple of things. One, why would you have a full nude picture of yourself in your home with your children, just like accessible to them and to guests, but folded under your headshot? That's number one. Right. And number two, the way it folds out, it would have to be so much longer to show her entire body. Yeah. Because it's like a bigger, like it's a headshot, so it's her head. So if it folded out, I guess maybe you would have like her boobs in there. But then it goes back to like, why? Why would you just have like a image of your boobs and your head that you then fold the boobs under and frame it and are like, all right, this is fine. No one will find it. So strange. Yeah. Few
behind the scenes stories here. I wanted to mention how ridiculous the cat costume is. I guess the actual costume only weighed about 3 pounds, but the makeup took 2.5 hours to apply. Makeup was done by special effects artist Steve Johnson, who, this is a funny way that they set this up. So this is from I think another contemporary story called from the Daily Herald, how Mike Myers filled the hat of Dr. Seuss's cat. It says, Steve Johnson was trained by Rick Baker, who won Oscars for makeup in Men in Black, The Nutty Professor, and Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So Rick Baker was the guy who won all the Oscars for makeup in these other more famous movies. Steve Johnson was just trained by Rick Baker. So, I mean, honestly, I think Jim Carrey's Grinch is also horrifying, but there's nothing as nightmarish as the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat. It's so disturbing. And actually, this is actually a good time to mention this. There is a mall somewhere in Northern Virginia when my son Remy was a baby. I was there, I think, to get his haircut. And, you know, malls nowadays are mostly abandoned. So it's mostly these like abandoned storefronts. And I saw from across the mezzanine of the mall, I saw this weird building. I don't know what it was. It looks like almost like it might have been like a daycare or something, like an abandoned daycare. It's like something out of a fucking Stephen King novel. And it was called like Busy Bees. And the like letters were falling down because it was obviously in disrepair. And all it had were those letters and like some decayed, brightly colored walls and a poster of the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat. And I was like, this is the place that you're going to report your child was last seen in. Like it was so disturbing. They couldn't have made it creepier. Like if they tried to. Like, it's unbelievable. In case you don't have nightmares yet, the cat suit was made of human hair and Angora. The nose could.
Why does it need to be made out of human hair? It's not like it looked like
that's where it got its dark powers from.
Right. It's not like it looked super like cat hair or anything. It could have been synthetic, and I wouldn't.
The nose was foam latex and literally was glued to Myers' face. And the inside of the suit had a vest with circulating cold water, as well as a portable air conditioner connected by a hose for outdoor shoots when temperatures exceeded 90 degrees. And Myers also, there were places for battery packs that controlled his tail and ears. So, you know, practical effects, I guess that's kind of, you know, this was like the last gasp of practical effects in movies. But I can't honestly say that a CG Cat in the Hat would have been worse looking. This is one of those movies that I don't think it makes a great argument for practical effects. Bo Welch said, the first time I saw Mike in the suit and makeup, it gave me a very light and joyful feeling. You have the memory of the book, and it was the first book I ever read. But of course, the cat never moves in the book. And to then see him come to life, it was a wonderful feeling.
A light and joyful feeling?
That's the opposite of what I feel, but
I feel terror. Yeah. Just cold terror running through my veins.
I guess the main thing we need to get to the movie. So the main other thing that I want to mention is, we've talked about this before. This was kind of like peak Mike Myers being a pain in the ass. We already mentioned that he was basically directing Alec Baldwin, which that must have been hilarious because Alec Baldwin is also a prick. So like there's got to be some good stories about that. He was very difficult to work with, refused to talk to anyone on the production other than the director. And this is from an interview with Amy Hill, who plays Mrs. Kwan, the narcoleptic, dated stereotype of an Asian babysitter. So Amy Hill gave an interview talking about her different roles. She said Mike Myers was like a little hermit. He would come in and I guess be in hair and makeup. We would wait. I'd be there at the crack of dawn waiting. We would all be waiting for Mike Myers to come. And the director was really lovely, but it was his first time directing, and he deferred to Mike so much. Mike would do a take, and then he'd go over and look at the monitors, and then he'd talk to the director, and then we'd do another take. It was just a horrible, nightmarish experience. There was a guy who held his chocolates in a little Tupperware. Whenever he needed chocolate, he'd come running over and give him a chocolate. That's what divas are like, I guess, or people who need therapy. And then this is kind of minor, but from the Los Angeles Times, apparently the infamous line where, for no good reason, the cat ends up holding a muddy garden hoe. And he says, dirty hoe.
It's for this joke.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only, because they're trying to
why.
catch the dog. The dog got out and they're trying to get the dog. And for some reason, the cat wants to kill the dog for reasons unknown. And so he has
just because he's a murderous psychopath. He's
right. And he has this hoe. And like the only reason I could think that he would even have that is so that they could shoehorn this joke in.
Right. And apparently a number of the people who worked on the movie asked that the line be cut for taste, but Myers fought for it.
It needed to be cut for taste. There's no reason for it. It's actually kind of shocking, and I'm obviously not offended by the word hoe. Right. But it's like so tonally weird.
Yeah, I'm not a prude, but I just don't think that line needs to be in a children's movie.
Right.
Like, call me crazy.
But and also it's not even like it's funny enough to where you're like, okay, well, like that's kind of inappropriate, but it was funny, so I can see it. Like literally, it makes no sense. It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like if the cat just said "fuck" for no reason, and it's like that doesn't make it funny.
Right. I mean, it does make it funny.
It's not probably funnier actually, but
yeah. But not for the reasons that you want in a children's movie.
The movie did gross 134 million, but against a budget of 109 million, so that's not great. And was panned by critics due to its screenplay, humor, lack of faithfulness to the source material, and Myers' portrayal of the title character. So pretty much everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you can't say critically panned for these reasons and then mention everything about the movie.
Everything about the movie. Probably arguably the most famous outcome is that Dr. Seuss's aforementioned widow, Audrey Geisel, after this, she refused to allow any more live action adaptations of Dr. Seuss's books. They wanted to make a sequel based on the second Cat in the Hat book. The Cat in the Hat Comes Back, which even that book is like, it's so fucking weird compared to the first one. So can you imagine the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat Comes Back? It would have had to be rated R, I think. And then the last thing I want to say before we get to the main discussion, I know I've been taking a long time here, but this touches upon something that you were saying, Callie. Roger Ebert and Richard Roeper gave the film 2 thumbs down. No surprise there. And Ebert said, talking about this and How the Grinch Stole Christmas, if there's one thing I've learned from these two movies, it's that we don't want to see Jim Carrey as a Grinch and we don't want to see Mike Myers as a cat. These are talented comedians. Let's see them do their stuff. Don't bury them under a ton of technology. I mean, yeah, like
I don't want to see any grown man in a fucking suit. How about that? Like, who are these for?
It's bewildering. And that's honestly, in a weird way, it's the one saving grace of the movie for me is that it's so bizarre that it exists that it makes me laugh. Like that's
right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not mad that I don't give a fuck about the Grinch, but I'm not mad that this exists.
And it's also like it got exactly what it deserved. It got Dr. Seuss's widow to refuse to greenlight any more film adaptations. So in a way, it's a net positive.
Right.
So on to the main event here. Our metrics. This is an abysmal minutes to Mike. Like really, really bad. I can't imagine it ever being topped. We don't see Mike until, I mean, one could argue we never see Mike because he's covered in human hair and Angora. But in so much as we see Mike, we don't see him for 17 minutes and 28 seconds. Like that's almost 6 So I Married an Axe Murders, 6 walks of the big cup of coffee. And then,
and honestly, that would be more interesting than what's happening in this.
It would. Yeah, this movie starts with a really laborious opening and table setting for a scenario that is honestly not complicated. Like, I guess this is a good time to briefly go into what's in the book. Like I said, it's I think about 48 pages, mostly pictures, and it's these kids, their mom is gone and they're at home and it's raining outside and they're bored. And then the cat shows up and at first it's fun. And then he makes a big mess, and then the kids are like, you got to get out of here. And they eventually get the cat to clean everything up and then leave. And that's it. That's the book.
Yeah, well, in the movie, it's never fun. There's never a point where it's fun.
Yeah. And there's a lot more like belching and attempted murder of household pets. They spend all this time introducing this town, Anvil, which I guess is just like your classic parody planned community, lifeless suburban kind of area.
This town is fucking weird. You can go into clubs in the random pillars that are in town. Everyone drives a lime green Ford Focus except for Alec Baldwin.
I wonder if
everyone is an asshole. More to the point.
Yeah.
Everyone in this town is a dick except for the kids' moms, and that includes the children. The children are both assholes.
Yeah, the children.
The mom's boss is an asshole. I feel bad for this woman.
Her neighbor, who she seems to be dating just because he's the only like eligible man in town, Alec Baldwin, is an asshole from the moment we meet him. But then we discover that he's also fat and doesn't have any teeth. Like it's just like an unnecessary level of deception going on. I just don't.
Yeah, he wears like a corset and acts like he's really put together, but then when he goes home, he takes his corset off and he's got like a belly and he's really hairy. And then for some reason, he's digging in his belly button. I do like the part where he goes over to their house and he like says something mean to the little girl, and then he walks into the kitchen and comes out and he has made a sandwich extremely quickly, like the quickest sandwich ever. And then he has like a big 6-pack of beers. I like that part.
Yeah, I like that he's completely obsessed with sending the child of his girlfriend, not even his wife, Conrad. He's obsessed with sending him to military school.
I mean, I'll tell you what. I know we're supposed to side with Conrad on this.
In some ways, he's the most sympathetic character. Yeah.
but man, I would fucking want to send that kid to military school too.
Right. Honestly,
just
both
get rid
of them, because his sister, who is a very early role for Dakota Fanning, she's also just extremely unlikable, just in the opposite direction. She's just like, yeah, they're just garbage kids.
Yeah, it's just, like, she's a bitch, and he just like wrecks everything in the house.
Like deliberately. Yeah. And the mom is just a pushover, but she's also being abused at work. So maybe we should cut her a break. So her job, first of all, I thought it was interesting to watch this movie post-pandemic or mid-pandemic, because one of the things that we're instantly supposed to hate about her boss, Mr. Humberflube, which is their, like, they try to give him like a Dr. Seussian name, is that he's always using hand sanitizer, and I'm
he
like,
doesn't want people to touch him.
Right, exactly. It's like a weird like anti-hand washing agenda.
Yeah, it's weird that you're supposed to dislike him because he's a germaphobe.
Right.
Which is pretty fucking ableist. And not the fact that he is a jackass who will fire people with little to no provocation and loudly in front of everyone.
It's like a weird catchphrase because he does it multiple times. He just screams fired at the top of his lungs, and really puts a lot of emphasis on the duh. It honestly seems like something that a kid would come up with. And just like repeats all the time because kids are fucking annoying. And I guess that's just the level of writing that we're going to get from the fucking Seinfeld writers.
That's what this movie actually is. It reminded me of when like you have to like come up with a funny sketch for a group project or something. Right. That's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of like an assortment of sketches that you had to do with a group of kids that you didn't like. So you were trying to come up with funny stuff.
Right.
And it wasn't funny,
right?
But it was
exactly
school, so you had to just. In this case,
the kids you don't like are Mike Myers, Alec Baldwin, and Sean Hayes. Like that.
Yep.
So yeah, we do we introduce the fact that the mom Joan, she's a realtor. She works for this asshole, Mr. Humberflube, and is deathly afraid of losing her job at every moment because he will just, with no provocation, fire you in front of everyone. Meanwhile, she has these two insufferable little shits at home who keep causing problems and forcing her to run home, putting her job and their livelihood at jeopardy. The first time we see Conrad, he's doing an indoor stair luge. He puts all of this shit like from the cupboards, like, popcorn bags and stuff like that.
He sticks a loaf of bread in his pants for no reason. He puts it in the front. Like, he just opens up the front of his pants, plops a open bag.
That's right. Yeah, because protective cups are famously soft and squishy. That's the best way.
Well, you can't snack on them though.
Oh yeah, because then he takes a bite. This movie just sucks. So meanwhile, Joan is having an event that night, so the house can't be destroyed. I don't really fully understand why, because I just went through the home buying process, and at no point did I come over to my realtor's house for a dinner party. I don't think that's part of the real estate process, but I guess things are different in Annville, so she needs the house to be in pristine condition. She hired Clint Howard as a caterer, so he shows up for some reason. So when she comes, that's right.
Or it's a stupid man named Kate joke because
right, yeah, because what's more hilarious than an ugly Clint Howard being named like a girl?
Yeah. Yeah, she asked where Kate is, and he's like, "I'm Kate." That's the joke. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, there you go. It's probably one of the funnier jokes in the movie, to be honest. So having seen Conrad leave the house in disarray, she realizes that these horrible kids can't be trusted alone. So when she gets called back to the office, she calls in a babysitter. This is the aforementioned Mrs. Kwan, who seems to have some kind of serious form of narcolepsy. She spends the entire movie in an extremely deep sleep. So now all the pieces are in place. Mrs. Kwan is there. Joan is at work. We've introduced Lawrence, who is Alec Baldwin's character, and we've revealed that he's not a nice guy, despite the fact that he wants to send Conrad to military school, which is again a good thing. So now the cat shows up. He kind of
arrives out of nowhere.
He does, yeah.
Like 1 second they're just sitting there, or like they hear something, and so they go upstairs, and Conrad scares whatever the girl's name is. I don't even remember. And then it's like they turn around and Mike Myers is there, and he's like, I can't remember what he says, but he's just like keeps scaring them.
Right.
And then they run away. And then eventually he's like, he's under the bed with them, and he's like, get scared and run away. And then they do it. It's so stupid. And then he's got a like New York accent, and then all of a sudden he reverts back to a Canadian accent.
Yeah, let's talk about the Cat in the Hat's characterization. So at its core, he's basically Linda Richmond from Coffee Talk.
Kind of.
That's what the voice sounds like. He's got the New York accent. Although I did see I've seen him mention a couple times that one of Mike Myers' inspirations was the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz, which I can see that.
Well, he keeps going,
yeah, right.
That's kind of like that.
It's a subtle tribute. Yeah. It's not so much that the reference is too subtle as it is that it's wildly inconsistent. Like, yeah, sometimes he's Linda Richmond, sometimes he's Bert Lahr as the Cowardly Lion. Sometimes he's Charlie from So I Married an Axe Murderer. I definitely heard hello. His main catchphrase is "Oh yeah." It's just so I guess sometimes he's the Kool-Aid man.
He does it so much too, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
It's rarely reacting to anything. Like the best parts are the scenes where there are multiple cats and they're all kind of reacting to each other, but the green screen effect isn't very well timed. So it's like very clear that they're not reacting to each other. So it's just like three unrelated cats in the hat, like moving around like goofballs and occasionally going, "Oh yeah." Like it's just so bizarre.
Yeah, well, we have to talk about the cooking show scene because that's the best scene.
That's the masterpiece. That's the one I was alluding to before that I was like, okay, I have to see this movie. So first of all, what is it? Where does it come from? I don't think it.
Because she says, he asked them what they want to do today, and the little girl says, I want to make cupcakes.
Okay.
And so he's like, oh, we can make cupcakes. And then it turns into a cooking show scene.
Right.
So that they can do a spoof on a cooking show, I guess. There's two cats at this point. they're watching the cooking show. But then there's
the original cat.
Yeah, the original cat. And then
there's a cat with a blonde wig and a Canadian accent who's like the host of the show.
Yeah, and the host. I love this because they didn't bother like naming, like they didn't come with any like funny names or anything.
No cat puns, like no characterizations. Just bare minimum.
So the host he refers to himself as the man in the sweater who asked all the really obvious questions. And then he's like, and our guest today, straight from Yorkshire, England, it's, and then it goes to the side of the stage, and the third cat runs out, and he's like, it's me! He didn't even get a name. He didn't even get properly announced. It's so obvious that they like couldn't think of anything. So like, fuck it, we'll just have him run up and say it's me.
They didn't bother. Their contempt for their audience was.
It literally just feels like Mike Myers has these tics where he has to do accents and catchphrases.
Right.
Because there's no reason for this cat to be British.
No, not at all. And he's also like really ill-tempered. And there's several lines that, again, in this case, it's inappropriate for a children's movie, which makes it hilarious. Like I think the dirty hoe line is bad, but the lines that he says in this are so good because he says like with such seriousness, I will end you. Because
the guy in the sweater asks all the obvious questions, is asking obvious questions. He's saying like, because they can make anything with cupcakes, and the guy's like, anything. And like, is that stupid joke? And then just like out of nowhere, he just like flicks over to him and is like, I will end you and I'll make it look like a bloody accident.
And then the British chef cat, which is I just thought of this. Is that supposed to be like a Gordon Ramsay kind of a thing?
You know what? Maybe it is. I didn't think about that, but it does make sense.
It's a very flimsy premise, but it is at least a premise. Well, maybe we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say this is a Gordon Ramsay cat. But he cuts off his own tail. And then he's going, like, he's clearly going to say shit, and then it bleeps him out, and it goes to like technical difficulties. And that, in the original clip that I saw, that's where the clip ends, and that's honestly where the movie should end.
Right. And then it just cuts to him with his lawyers, because the cat has these lawyers that keep showing up.
Yeah, because he makes the kids sign a contract, which shockingly is important later in the film in a way that makes absolutely no sense. So he makes the kids sign this contract that is obviously like waiving him of any indemnities. And then, it cuts to him with the lawyers, and he's saying, I'm not saying we're going to sue. I'm just saying we have a case. Another thing I want to mention about the cat, and also what we mentioned about the poorly synced reactions. So that's where it like cuts to the cat in the audience, and he's like shaking his arms around and yelling, "Oh yeah," to nothing. Like he's not reacting to anything in particular. And then there's like a couple of times where the chef cat is just bellowing, "I'm so excited." Oh, yeah. It's like, it's like Dada. It's like completely meaningless. The only thing that's consistent about the cat's characterization is he has this like goofy way of walking where he's moving all of his limbs, and he usually does it, but not always. Like that's the other thing, is that it's not a characterization that Mike put a lot of work into. So it's kind of like sometimes he remembers to do the walk and sometimes he doesn't.
Well, the same with the New York accent. Sometimes he has it, sometimes he doesn't. He's Canadian when he sings. Like sometimes he just has a British accent. And I think about like the Cat in the Hat. My like vision of the Cat in the Hat when I read the book as a child was like he's like tall and kind of like cool and like goofy.
Right.
And then in the movie he's just this like short fat Canadian guy.
Yeah. He's
with
horny.
fake eyelashes on.
Yeah. And roughly 60%, I would say conservatively, of the jokes in the movie are the cat either starting to say something dirty and then stopping himself. There's a scene where he almost says balls. His car, when he has a car, there's no need to get into it really, but it has like an acronym name that spells out SLOW, slow, and his original acronym spelled out shit.
There's no point for that joke either.
There's no point. I guess
the acronym slow is fine.
Right.
It's also appropriate for children.
Right. It's almost like a hateful thing to do because it's like, I hate you and your fucking kids so much that I'm going to make it difficult for you to explain this joke when they ask.
Right. Right.
It's like he's getting back at the world for getting him in legal trouble after Dieter. Speaking of inappropriate and also bizarre, there's a part where the cat suddenly becomes like a mechanic. I guess he's tuning the couch before the kids jump on it. I don't know. So he becomes a mechanic. And of course, because he's a mechanic, he has his ass crack hanging out. But because he's a giant anthropomorphic cat, it's like extra disturbing because he has his cat fur and then just a human ass crack poking out from the cat fur. And it's like, it's uncannily predictive of the 2019 movie version of Cats, where Rebel Wilson takes off her cat outfit and reveals clothes underneath. It's like the same kind of just warped idea of anthropomorphic cat anatomy. So this is I don't know if it's Mike Myers' worst character because A, we haven't gotten to the Love Guru yet, and B, Goldmember is pretty fucking bad. So I don't know if it's his worst character. It's definitely up there though. It's definitely maybe his laziest character. No, I don't know. Goldmember again and Love Guru, but I mean it's top 3 for sure. So from here, obviously, so the cupcakes, they make a huge mess, and now we're kind of following the book because he made this big mess, and now this is where he introduces Thing 1 and Thing 2, who I hate.
Oh, I hate them. They're horrible.
Abominations against nature. I don't like their beady little weirdly human eyes. I wish that somebody would take a flamethrower to them. They're really troubling.
Like how they looked in the book.
Yeah. Thing 1 and Thing 2 are kind of like they're whimsical, and they look almost they don't look like cute. Rodents. Look like little guys with blue hair. This one, they look kind of Who-like, but also rat-like. I don't know what the fuck is going on. And you can tell that I think the worst thing about them is it's like they're both not human-looking enough and too human-looking, because you can tell that they're people. It's just like, what happened? And then so we're following the book, but at the same time, everything is needlessly overcomplicated. So he brings out this crate, but the crate is not just the crate where Things 1 and 2 are kept. The crate is a door to the cat's dimension. We never know what fucking dimension that is, by the way. So the cat is some kind of like Lovecraftian interdimensional trickster god, I guess. but he's from this weird dimension that's all like bubbles and stuff. And somehow, if the crate doesn't stay locked, that dimension is going to intrude. It's like a science fiction story. I don't understand what's going on. Their solution to the movie not having a plot is to just add a bunch of random shit to it. So the lock from the crate gets attached to their dog, and then the dog runs away.
I just need to mention that the crate, it says it's made in the Philippines. And then the kid is like, he says he's explaining the crate, which is what you just explained.
Right.
And then the kid is like, but it says it's made in the Philippines. And the cat is like, not the Philippines here.
Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean?
What is this lore?
Right.
So there's a Philippines in the cat's dimension, but it's not the one from our dimension. It's like fucking Lost or something. Like, what the hell? So at this point, the movie takes on its own plot, which is the cat and the kids trying to get after the dog. I think they're all chasing the dog to get the lock back, but I think the cat also wants to kill the dog, like you mentioned. So that's like a little extra wrinkle in there. So they're pursuing the same ends, but have different ways of going about it. And then Lawrence is also trying to get the dog because
Lawrence is Alec Baldwin. I don't think we ever mentioned that before.
I think I mentioned it very in passing, but it bears repeating because I always just think of him as Alec Baldwin. He also wants the dog, I guess, because it's going to like show his usefulness to their mom and also give him leverage to send Conrad to military school. There's very little motivation for anything in this movie. So Lawrence
it's really a vehicle for the joke where he's driving with the dog and the dog pees on his tacos, and then it zooms out into like a scene of him, like his car riding the road, and there's the sound of his voice going, "Oh, I can't believe you whizzed on my tacos."
That's one of those jokes that is it's funnier to say than it is to watch. Another scene that I enjoy and that I mentioned earlier is during this. So everything from here just kind of happens because the dog runs somewhere and the kids and the cat follow him. So they find this birthday party, which I guess plot wise, this is so that Sally, Dakota Fanning's character, can see what a bitch she is because none of the other kids invited her to the birthday party because she's, a miserable human being. So that's the plot reason why this happens. But the comedy reason is that they have a piñata at the party and the cat like disguises himself because they're going to see him. So he just freezes and they think he's the piñata. And then this is the best performance in the movie. And this is I looked
by Beans from Even Stevens.
By Beans from Even Stevens, yeah. I looked this kid up because I was like, who is this kid? He's selling this role so well. Like he's so good at this, and he doesn't even have any lines. But he's just like the perfect, like he looks like a little shit. He's got like a smirk and he like looks at his friends and he's like, get a load of this. And then he just like wails on the cat right in the nuts. And it suddenly cuts to Lionel Richie's Easy is playing. And the cat is in a dress and a bonnet, swinging on a swing. It is so weird. Oh, and then the cat is, next we see Beans, and the cat is creeping up on him with the piñata bat held over his head, presumably to beat him to death. Because again, this is a children's movie. Meanwhile, we're back at with Mrs. Kwan. The mom calls Mrs. Kwan to check on the kids. Thing 1 and Thing 2 turned her into a giant human marionette because they're not terrifying enough yet, I guess. So this is where Lawrence gets the dog. The dog whizzes on his tacos. The cat and the kids follow up into town. The cat comes up with this brilliant plan to disguise himself as a hippie. He still has the cat costume, but now
he has dreadlocks.
Yeah, he has
Rastafarian hat.
Yeah, his hat has become a red and white Rasta hat, and yeah, he has black locks and piercings, and his strongest Canadian accent yet. But this part is actually kind of it's stupid, but it is one of the funnier jokes because his whole plan is to trick Alec Baldwin / Lawrence into giving him the dog by handing him a pen that is so comically large that he can't hold the dog and the pen at the same time. It's so dumb, but it works. Like it's probably one of the better parts of the movie. Not that it has much competition.
But what doesn't work is how he keeps saying that he doesn't like the word dog. He prefers canine American.
Yeah. Little early jab at cancel culture there.
Right.
So now they're running because they have the dog back. This is where they run into the rave where Paris Hilton shows up. Every child's favorite public figure, Paris Hilton. I did think that this part was kind of clever because, obviously the whole thing about people at raves wearing Cat in the Hat hats, they found a way to work that in.
Yeah, that was kind of funny.
It feels like an example of like adult humor that isn't totally irresponsible.
Right. Well, I feel like they were trying to make like a Shrek type movie, but like Shrek never just called someone a dirty hoe for no reason.
Yeah.
There was stuff in there that adults could like appreciate, but that wasn't incriminating for kids. Like. Yeah,
exactly. So at this point, they've got the dog, they've got the key, they got to go back to close the crate. And send Thing 1 and Thing 2 back into whatever
hell
whatever hell they came from.
But they don't have the hat because in the rave he got his hat switched with someone, so he doesn't have his magic cat hat.
This is what I don't understand because he later has the hat again, and then was like, I was lying. It's just like, it's one of those things.
Oh, see, I didn't even catch that. By the end of the, I'm going to be honest with you. I was playing Pokemon trading card online, and by the end of the movie, I was just kind of like not paying attention.
I mean,
that went right over my head.
I don't think it's possible to watch this entire movie without tuning out by the end of it. And again, it's not a very long movie. So by this time, the like interdimensional goop is leaking out of the crate, and the dimensions are merging. It's such a weird level of stakes for the fucking Cat in the Hat. Lawrence is there. The cat, by the way, Lawrence, very minor side plot, is allergic to cats. So
and the way he sneezes is weirdest fucking sneeze ever.
I believe that it's how Alec Baldwin sneezes, though.
I hope that he was just like painstakingly directed by Mike Myers to sneeze like that.
Yeah, Lawrence is allergic to the cat, so the cat startles him. He falls backwards, and we do later see him show up, although in a really bizarre way. He like gets squeezed out of a pipe and is somehow still alive. But at the time that he falls, it looks like he's dead. He like tears through the fabric of reality and just like falls into this infinite abyss. It's very dark. I was like, he was an asshole, but I don't know if he deserved that. The cat's dimension is a kind of hell, and also like a psychedelic light show, and also a water park. And so they ride Mrs. Kwan's prone body down a water slide, basically. And
they then have like product placement for Universal Studios. Did that Universal Studios ride ever get made?
So they close the crate, the house goes back to normal, but then the house also falls apart. And then the cat just fucks off. You don't know where he went, but then he comes back. And then it's like, this is where I was talking about, where he was like, oh, that contract you signed said that I would clean up everything. So it's like this was his plan all along. And then it also turns out that he had his magic hat all along, but didn't tell them for reasons. It was like too complicated for this movie. I was like, I don't need the cat to have hidden motivations like it's a fucking John Le Carre novel, he's the Cat in the Hat. Like, he wrecks the house and then he cleans it. Like, that's all you need. This is seen as most notable for having a cover of Getting Better by the Beatles by fucking Smash Mouth, which, by the way, I read today. So obviously Smash Mouth is known for their cover of I'm a Believer, and also their of course, classic original All-Star, being in Shrek.
And Walking on the Sun, or whatever the fuck that movie is called.
What I didn't know until today was that Smash Mouth also had a song on the Goldmember soundtrack. So this is the third Smash Mouth song in a Mike Myers movie. And I'm just like, is Mike Myers a huge Smash Mouth fan? Like, how does this keep happening?
I thought that maybe they just like had something in their contract with DreamWorks.
Yeah,
like maybe
could be. Yeah, are they on like Universal Records? I bet they they were. Interscope Universal. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, there. That was a surreal moment because it's like, I'm pretty much fully checked out of this movie. I hear Getting Better and I'm like, wow, they got a Beatles song. And then I hear the voice and I'm like, is that Smash Mouth? And I looked it up and sure enough it was. So yeah, the cat now disappears again, this time more or less for good. Mom comes home. She breaks up with Alec Baldwin, who again has been squeezed out of a pipe and is covered in
this purple slime. It's such I remember this being advertised all the time on Nickelodeon. It's such a like Nickelodeon movie, but
it does feel, it's very like, what was that movie with Paul Giamatti where he was blue? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Amanda Bynes was in it.
Yeah, is it Big Fat Liar? Is that?
Yeah.
But I mean, also just the whole Nickelodeon aesthetic is just like being covered in slime. That was very in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then the party is a success. It's gotten that fixed everything. And then the cat is the narrator. There was a narrator at the beginning of the movie, and it turns out that was the cat all along. And then he walks off into the sunset with things 1 and 2. And then the movie's over. So I didn't calculate actually the mic proof until just now. And you'll recall that last time was literally impossible levels of mic proof. And this one is definitely our lowest in quite a while. It might be our lowest of all time. So if we consider Shrek, because remember Shrek, we were kind of, you could make a case for grading Shrek on a curve and saying it's only at most 92.5 Mike proof because you never actually see Mike. In that case, The Cat in the Hat is more because I came up with 136 because there's quite a few, again, he doesn't show up for like 17 minutes. There's that one scene with 3 of him, but then there's a good amount of other scenes with none of him. So yeah, this is kind of the lowest Mike content in quite a while, but man, he tries to make up for that with every second he's on screen. So it's,
right.
You definitely don't feel like there's any lack of Mike going on. Like there's a lot of Mike going on, even if it isn't easily quantifiable by the measurements we've come up with.
Probably because even when he doesn't appear on scene, like he was probably directing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, technically, it's a higher Mike proof because he did Alec Baldwin's performance for him. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this. It's astonishingly not the worst movie that we've watched. I feel like I would watch this again before I would watch Goldmember.
Oh, 100%.
If nothing else, it's shorter.
I mean, I feel like you can throw this one on and do what I was doing and be distracted, and it's not going to make you angry
because it doesn't make any sense.
Right, you'll just hear "oh yeah" every couple of minutes.
And I think
I'm so excited.
I love the fact that this movie brought that horrific cat into the world, and like now you can find gifs of him. You can sometimes see posters in weird abandoned daycare locations. I honestly think, aside from the fact that Dieter sounds like it would have been a good movie, and it's unfortunate that we didn't get to see it, I feel like The Cat in the Hat has created a net positive, partly by effectively ending Mike Myers' career. So this would be a much longer endeavor if it hadn't been for The Cat in the Hat. But on the other hand, if it hadn't been for The Cat in the Hat, we probably never would have thought to go through all of this. So maybe it's actually just a wash. I don't know. So yeah, like I said, next up is Shrek the third. No, Shrek 2, and then Shrek the Third. God, I forgot we haven't even fucking watched Shrek 2. I might honestly just mainline both of those in one sitting, and then
I was thinking the same thing. Just
that might be. It might make it more like my irritation at Shrek 3 will be much more pronounced. So I think that'll make for a better show. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.